Hello, hello. It is the one and only 5D Attraction, and we're here. Wanted to tap in this video. This is another important breakdown of some of this science, and it boils down to what can you get versus what can you give, right? And that's something that you got to understand in the game. Um, you got to understand that number one, what do you naturally get? What comes natural to you? What do you feel like you deserve based on the attractiveness that you bring and based on the value that you bring when it comes to interacting with someone on a level of, you know, whether it's just attraction, whether it's actually dating, whether it's for a relationship. But initially, let's focus on attraction here because that's really where it all begins. Um, you know what I mean? What can you get? Okay. A lot of people don't understand that. Um, and they get upset. And you got to understand, what can you get? What are you getting? You know what I mean? Why aren't you? Because that will help you also understand why you aren't getting what you want. You got to understand where you are. You know what I mean? So what can you get? Um, that's something that the higher up this attractiveness scale that you are, you know what I mean? This is the reference here. The higher you are up on this attractiveness scale, the more you're able to get in regard to options, the more levels you're able to get, the more beauty you're able to attain, relatively speaking. The lower you are on this chart, the lower you'll be able to get, the less you'll be able to get. And that's your conundrum. But then you have another side is what can you give? And that's the side that kind of balances things out because you can be a 3, you can be a 2, but if you give so much, if let's say you have charisma, let's say you have an aura, let's say you have things going on with your life, you're successful, you're motivational, you have qualities that are attractive, that are intangible qualities, you know what I mean? Very intelligent, in a position of power in life. Or you could just be really down to earth, really funny, really, understanding. You know what I mean? But you got to understand what that value is, because the more that you are able to give, right, the more that you can raise yourself up on this attractiveness scale or bridge the gap for somebody you might want to aim and essentially get more options. And it's all about being creative, because the first thing everyone goes to is money. Oh, it has to be money. Oh, well, obviously if you're a 4 and she's an 8, you got to bridge the gap with money. And I think that's a box that a lot of people find themselves in. And I think it's also a route that can have you in a scenario where the person you're with doesn't really respect you, or they're not very attracted to you. They're just doing it for the money. That's an external thing, though. You can use money, and honestly, that's okay. If some people want to use money to bridge the gap, that's what works for them, because it might be considered easier. You know what I mean? Less, whatever. But I'm just here to explain that there's also non-physical things you can use that can also give you that. You got to understand that if there's $1 billion that exists in physical money that you can gain, and if we believe in as within, so without, yin and yang, polarity, both sides, then we should also understand that there's $1 billion worth of value or abilities or character within you that you can pull out. You know what I mean? There are people who are so funny. They're infinitely and abundantly funny that they can get anybody they want just through their communication. There are people who are so intelligent they can get people with their intelligence. There's people who, are so confident and ambitious, it makes them stand out. They got $1 billion worth of confidence. You know what I mean? And that's felt. These are energies. These are frequencies that are expressed out, that a woman feels or that a man feels when they come in contact with you, and that plays a role. So you got to understand what you can get, and lean on that. That's beautiful. That means that's what naturally attracted to you. But also understand what you can give, because to the degree that you understand what you can give is to the degree that you can gain more and more and better. So that's my message. Think about that: getting versus giving. Ideally, you want to have both going on. You know what I mean? And the more that you give doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be getting. You know what I mean? But the more that you get, you know, that's predicated. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to balance out with what you give. Sometimes you just get things and you put little effort in. You know what I mean? But the things that you are able to give, understand what that is, because by understanding that, it might actually increase what you get because of your confidence in what you give. Because that person that's the 8, 9, 10, wherever they are on that scale, they're walking into the environment and they're like, hey, like, I'm bringing beauty to the table, so I expect to get that. Or I'm bringing charisma to the table, so I expect to get something back. Versus other people, if you come in with nothing, you leave out with nothing. You know what I mean? You have nothing to give, you have nothing to gain. You know what I mean? And so, with that being said, that's my message. You know what I mean? Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to get into that Patreon where I got the 5D based attraction course as well as the Pyramidian coaching program on there. Level up. See y'all in the next video. Peace.